Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Alderman Stralchuk,
Here.
Alderman Bushy.
Here.
Alderman Meyer,
Here.
Alderman Hancher.
Here.
Alderman Garrell,
Here.
Alderman Parrish,
Here.
Alderman Schneider,
Here.
Alderman Nurbin,
Here.
and Mayor Worth.
Here. We have everyone here. The first item of business is personal appearances and public comment. Citizens wishing to address the council on any matter not on the agenda may do so at this time. If you desire to be heard on an agenda item, please step forward. We do have a 5-minute time limit. If your item is, I think one person signed up to speak on something that is only here on a first reading, if they would like to, and that's an ordinance that'll be heard next month. If they want to talk, this is the appropriate time for that also. Ms. King.
Hi, my name is Bridget King. I live at 12960 Northwest Shoreland Drive. I know it's a first reading for the term limits, development, low taxes, forefront in this, and so we need the historical perspective. One more thing I wanted to bring up, which I brought up 10 years ago when this all came up, was Lee Shimborski at the time sent me the canvassing results of the 2010 election, which was Mayor Kurt Gilo, Alderman John Worth at the time, and Alderman Dan Abendroth. My husband, that was his 9th term. He actually won the 10th one too, but that was running as mayor and alderman. He won both. So sometimes you lose against an incumbent, and sometimes you win against an incumbent. But one thing I want to point out, and you had brought up at that Public Welfare Committee meeting, that if there is something, if somebody doesn't like something or somebody, either run or you write in Rocky and Bullwinkle, Donald Duck. Dan Abendroth in the 2010 election was the only one who did not have a single other write-in. The other 2 gentlemen running that year had people writing in because they didn't want to vote for that person, so they just wrote in somebody else. Dan Abendroth did not. People wanted him there. They loved his experience, they loved his historical perspective, and I think it is so important for our council to continue that. This is not federal and state government. You are all citizen leaders. You're paid volunteers, basically. You're public servants. You are the leaders. Strong council, weak mayor. That is our form of government. Let's keep it that way, and I hope that we can continue to have the longevity that has helped keep the city as wonderful as it is. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. King. The next item on the agenda is a committee of the whole meeting. We have arranged to have the Wisconsin Department of Transportation and the engineers who are dealing with the I-43 corridor come to make a presentation. I assume that's what some of you are here for. If, ladies and gentlemen, whoever is going to be speaking, if you could step forward. Gentlemen. Yeah. By the way, it wasn't my proposal. I wasn't in office when I spoke here. It's not. It's Kennedy Diners.
There you go. It's on. Yeah, the light just turned on. You can see it in the.
Hear random humming. I don't know what that's from in the back.
Wow, okay. Accidental. Who's who? Okay. While they're getting this together, I'll introduce the 2 speakers. Sitting at the table is Steve Huff of WISDOT and Andy Kowski, if I'm pronouncing your last name correctly, of HNTB. So HNTB is part of the design group for the project, if I understand correctly. Take it away.
It's almost up there. It's going back and forth.
That's what it says on the top.
Something just not the right. Or no, it's applied.
I don't think so.
good? Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, thank you for having us here tonight. As you mentioned, I'm Steve Hoff, the Department of Transportation Project Manager for the I-43 project. And Andy Kowski is with HNTB, and he's the consultant design lead for the project. So this is a corridor that we've been working on for a number of years. I've been involved with it since, actually going on 10 years, late 2011. Oh, there we went again. When it comes back up, you can see there's the corridor. We start just right at Bender, so just north of Silver Spring Drive down in Glendale. And then we continue for 14 miles to the north up to Highway 60 in Grafton. It is a freeway expansion project. The existing freeway is currently 2 lanes each direction. We are expanding to 3 lanes each direction. As far as where we're beginning the project, that's right at the existing, where you're heading northbound with the 3 lanes where that goes down to 2. That's where we're starting with the expansion, and we'll just continue that all the way north to Highway 60. There are 5 interchanges that are being reconstructed as part of the project. Good Hope, Brown Deer, County Line, which is going from a half interchange to a full interchange, Highway C, and Mequon Road, and then a new interchange is going in at Highland. We also have some pretty extensive local work. Port Washington Road in Glendale is being expanded from 2 to 4 lanes. That's the existing piece by the railroad bridge. We're also replacing the railroad bridge. That'll be lengthened so that it can accommodate the widened freeway as well as a widened Port Road. This is just a graphic showing you the program schedule. As I mentioned, we had been working on this late 2011, early 2012, and the first phase of the project was the environmental investigation, and that's where we had a number of meetings here in this room as well as in Glendale, just sort of formulating the concept for the project and what needed to happen as part of the project. So that it resulted in the environmental impact statement, the environmental document, in November of 2014. After that, the next step for the project, because it's what we consider a state major, it's a really large project, it had to be included in a state budget for it to move forward into final design and construction. And at that time, it didn't. It went through a couple budget cycles and was basically on hold. And then Governor Evers put it in the state budget in July of 2019, as it says in the middle there. The first thing we then did, we hadn't worked on it for a few years, so we had to kind of dust everything off and see if anything had changed in the area. And so we did that. And that was then documented in April of 2020 with the environmental reevaluation we completed at that time. And then here we are jumping forward to 2021, getting ready for construction to start actually at the end of this month. And then we're looking to have everything wrapped up by early 25. So what's behind there is just a delivery schedule kind of showing a longer timeline of the project, and it's turn this monitor. It shows you how construction is overlapping. I'll wait just a second here. I'll stay there. Okay. Yeah, so this is a delivery schedule. A couple of things to glean from this. At the very top, there is a lot of right-of-way being acquired as part of this project. Currently right in the middle of that. Right below that line is where it says construction, and that's where you can see construction starting in the middle part of this year. As I mentioned, at the end of this month, actually in about 2 weeks, construction will start. And then you can see how the corridor is broken down. There's actually 7 different let packages shown up there. And the reason we do that is this is a 14-mile corridor. It's a really large project, and it's too big to keep it as one project and let it all at once. And so we've broken it up into several different pieces, and the work zone prep project is the one that I mentioned that'll be starting later this month. You can then see as you get into 2022, where it says North End Main Line, that's a project that'll run from just south of Highland Road up to Highway 60. And that'll go for 2 years, as shown up there. At that same time, we're also going to be working on the County Line Road Interchange. That project will go about 1.5 years. And then if you continue down the list there, you'll see that section of Port Washington Road in Glendale, the 2 to 4 lane expansion, that's starting in late 22 or early 2023. And at the same time, we'll also be replacing the UP Railroad Bridge over the freeway down in Glendale, and then also starting the south end in Milwaukee County, which is Bender up through the Brown Deer Road interchange. So the nice thing about this graphic is you can just see the overlap in 2023. There'll be a lot of construction going on, and then as we get near the end of 2023, things will start to wrap up, like the north end, again from Highland to 60, that'll be finishing up, so things will start to open back up again. But that's a pretty busy year in 23. And then in 24, we've got the second year of two of those packages. One thing I didn't mention, I see in 23 is the Mequon Road interchange starting there as well. And then 24 will have the second year of the south end and the second year of Mequon Road. And then 25 is just some cleanup work and more minor stuff happening just to tie everything up. So this is just a graphic that shows kind of why we set things up that way. If you look at the top, that's the north end main line. You can see we then skip the Mequon Road segment because we don't want adjacent areas under construction at the same time. We need to have good locations for traffic to go. So as an example, while we're building that new Highland Road interchange, Highway C interchange will be open for traffic, and the Mequon Road interchange to the south will also be open. Then once Highland is done after that first year, we can then start working on C because Highland's available for traffic. And County Line will also be done, so then we can start working on Mequon that second year. So it's just sort of a leapfrog approach as far as how we're going to build the corridor, just to keep traffic flowing as best we can during construction. So this is just a map showing that north end main line. If you look on the left side, you can see that project starts just south of Highland, and as I mentioned, goes up to Highway 60 in Grafton. It does include the new Highland Road interchange, also the reconstructed interchange at Highway C. We've got new bridges on the freeway over Lakefield Road that are being reconstructed as part of that. And then we're also going to replace the Falls Road Bridge over the freeway. As far as Highway 60, there's not a whole lot of work happening at that interchange. We're just replacing the northbound off-ramp and the southbound on-ramp. That bridge was reconstructed not all that long ago.
Where do you want questions if people have questions?
Anytime is fine.
So back to that chart, does that tell us that C, Highland Road, and half of 60 will be under, the three interchanges will be under construction at the same time?
They won't, and I'll show that. Yeah,
Sorry.
a staging slide in a little while. We spaced them apart on purpose. Highland will go in 2022. Highway C will go in 2023.
Okay. Just a little worried about that.
Okay. Yeah, we'll show you that in just a few minutes here. So yeah, graphic showing that north end project, and then this is a rendering of the Highland Road interchange. One thing throughout the corridor, we've got the Union Pacific Railroad. Again, the bridge that crosses over the freeway, and then it kind of heads to the north and parallels either Port Road or the freeway the entire length of the project, which offers challenges in its own right, just building and coordinating with the railroad and building over and adjacent to the railroad. So you can see that on the right-hand side of that graphic. Kind of shows you the opening, the portal, if you will, of Highland over the railroad. And then because that's so tight, fitting in the new ramps between the freeway and the railroad, we call it the tight diamond interchange. The darker gray, those are retaining walls that'll be constructed to fit the interchange in. Concordia, of course, is on the top part of the page, as well as you can see their tennis courts on the right-hand side. So then this is that other piece I mentioned will be in construction starting in 2022, the County Line Road interchange. This interchange is currently the half interchange. It just has a southbound on-ramp right at County Line Road itself, and then it's got the northbound off-ramp, which is just off the page, or actually it's just on the left-hand side of the page. What we're going to do is we're keeping the southbound off-ramp where it is, but then the other three ramps to make it a full interchange are all moving where Port Road is over the freeway. So on the actually, you can see it here, right in this area. This is the northbound off-ramp. Here's the northbound on-ramp. And then right in here is the southbound off-ramp. So that'll become a full interchange in that location. And this is the extent of that construction package. It's basically the interchange going in. And this is a rendering showing what that'll look like, looking north, kind of diagonally up and to the left. And then the third package in this general area is the Mequon Road interchange, again starting in late 2023 and running into 2024. the project itself is basically just the interchange. It's being compressed, tightened up a little bit so that we can maximize the spacing from the off-ramps here to Port Road. This is a really heavy traffic move here, so we want to maximize that spacing so we won't have any, backing up in this area. And these ramps are much longer as well, so that'll take care of the issue that I think has gotten a lot better since we lengthened that southbound off-ramp, but I know there was an issue previously with traffic tending to back up toward the interstate, so that'll all be taken care of as part of this project. And there's a rendering showing that. All right, with that, now we'll get into some of the details of the staging and closures and certainly keeping it very high level, but just to let you know what we're going to work on during what timeline, what the speed limits will be and that kind of thing. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andy and he can go through these details.
Yeah, so construction is going to start soon on the corridor. The work zone prep project, we bid it out to a contractor and they're ready to start working probably by the end of August. And there's 3 main areas where you'll see work with our work zone prep contract. Area number 1, which is on the north end segment, north of Highland Road. The contractor will be repairing the northbound outside shoulder. He'll be taking it out and putting in a new shoulder, and this is for future traffic staging on the corridor. The second area of construction with the work zone prep contract will be in the County Line Road area, and both directions of freeway will be impacted there. They'll repair the shoulder and also do temporary widening, which sets up that segment for future mainline work. And then the third area is down in Milwaukee County, where we'll be rehabbing a portion of Port Washington Road between Daphne Road and Good Hope Road. I should point out that the segment number 1 of the work zone prep, there will be some daytime lane closures. 2 lanes will be open at all times in the peak afternoons, but off-peak hours we'll have some lane closures, and then the lane closures down at County Line Road will be only at night. That's where the traffic volumes are higher there. And you can see that for northbound traffic in Ozaki County, we will be lowering the speed limit to 55 miles per hour to keep speeds lower and maintain safety in the work zone. Okay, and then the construction really starts to ramp up in 2022. That's when we start reconstructing the freeway lanes, and by November this year, the north end segment will get bid out to a contractor. Construction will start in early 2022. That'll include northbound temporary widening on the northbound main line. And then also, after we do that widening and move traffic over to the right, we'll start constructing some of the ultimate freeway lanes. And as Steve mentioned before, year 1 of the north end is when we reconstruct, or we build the new Highland Road interchange. It will include a bridge closure of Highland Road, and the detour for Highland will be Highway County C, which is Pioneer Road. And you can see here the speed limits within that north end segment will be 60 miles per hour, which is lower than the current 70 miles per hour. Also in 2022, we start reconstructing the County Line Road interchange. It's year 1 of construction. Both northbound and southbound freeway lanes will get reconstructed this year. We will close the Port Washington Road Bridge over the freeway. The detour for that will be the County Line Road Bridge just to the south. And we will also close and rebuild the Donges Bay Road Bridge over the freeway. And that bridge closure will use Mequon Road as a detour. And then also by Catherine Kearney Park, Catherine Drive, we'll have a full closure so we can rebuild the Fish Creek box culvert that goes underneath it. And that full closure will take place only after the Donges Bay Road Bridge reopens. We want to keep access open to the neighborhoods. And you can see on the map throughout the work zone at County Line Road, we will have a 55 mile per hour speed limit. Like right now at the county line, it goes from 55 to 70. So we're going to take that 55 and move it further north, all the way to the northern project limits. Okay. And then moving on to year 2023, this is the most intense year of construction on the corridor. It's year 2 of the north end segment. The County Line Road segment is wrapping up this year. And then also the south end segment of Milwaukee County starts. So outside of the Mequon Road segment for the first half of this year, all 14 miles will be under construction. It's year 2 of the north end. So both southbound and northbound mainline freeway lanes will be constructed this year. And after the Highland Road interchange is built in 2022, we pivot in 2023 and reconstruct the County Highway C interchange. That will include a ramp closures and a bridge closure. The detour will be Highland Road. And then 2023 is also year 2 of our County Line Road segment. And after the Port Road Bridge is reconstructed in 2022, we'll go and then rebuild the County Line Road Bridge over the freeway, and the detour for County Line Road will be to use the Port Washington Road Bridge. And then there's a small segment of mainline freeway that will get rebuilt at the County Line Road Bridge in 2023. And I mentioned before, it's south end, year 1 of construction down in Milwaukee County, and then towards the end of 2023, we'll start reconstruction of the Mequon Road segment, and most of that work is in 24. What you'll see in 23 is that we'll do some temporary widening of the southbound freeway, which sets up the corridor for future traffic stages, and there'll be some initial bridge work for the new southbound bridges that go over Mequon Road. Okay, and you can see the speed limits in 23 are similar to 22, where we're 60 miles per hour in Ozaukee County. And then we're scheduled to wrap up major construction on the freeway in 2024, year 2 of the south end down in Milwaukee County, and then more relevant to City of Mequon, the Mequon segment is in year 2 of construction. We'll rebuild both directions of the freeway. We'll reconstruct northbound first, and then flip traffic and rebuild the southbound roadway. The Mequon Road segment reconstruction will include ramp closures in both directions during construction, but this is after the Highland Road interchange is rebuilt, so that's available as an alternate interchange, and also the County Line Road interchange is complete by this time, so that'll be another alternate interchange that travelers can use. And just one last thing with 2024, you'll see that after the north end is rebuilt and completed in 2023, we'll raise the speed limit to 70 miles per hour after that segment is done. So in 2024, it'll, as you're going northbound, it'll increase to 70 after you get to just short of Highland Road. Okay. So just, you know, there's a lot of work in 3 years. It's a major freeway reconstruction project. Overall, the goal is to minimize impacts as best we can. We want to get in and get out, communicate well during construction. A couple more details, just some of the finer details with construction. We'll maintain 2 lanes in each direction during peak hours. We'll maintain the existing width, which is 12 feet, and then we'll have a minimum of 2-foot shoulders, both northbound and southbound. A lot of the previous projects you've seen have had 11-foot lanes and 1-foot shoulders. We're going to have a little bit more width out there. You know, the bridge closures and the ramp closures are required to maintain project schedule. If we tried to keep everything open during the entire reconstruction project, it would just take longer. So that's part of the get in and get out approach. You'll see frequent nighttime lane closures, and I mentioned communication before. Really, it's a day-to-day thing when we're rebuilding bridges over the freeway, demolishing bridges, and we need to close lanes at night to do that safely. So that'll be common during construction. And then there'll be a lot of trucking, frequent material deliveries, and trucking to get in and out of the work zone. Most of that access will come in and off the freeway. Okay, and we want to maintain safety as best we can during construction, and also keep traffic moving. And WISTOT, as part of their projects, has a transportation management plan. It's a comprehensive plan to accomplish those 2 goals. And I won't go through in detail with every bullet on this list, but we work with law enforcement. There'll be a dedicated freeway service team. Some people refer to that as a highway helper. On alternate routes where we know traffic is going to divert, we're going to put in emergency vehicle preemption so we can maintain good response times for emergency responders. We'll coordinate with transit. You know, we know there's the Ozaukee County Freeway Flyer that uses the corridor. We want to make sure we're in concert with them. They understand what we're doing. And then upgrading traffic signals on alternate routes, things like that. That's part of our transportation management plan. It's a big focus for I-43. And then communications. We're fortunate to have a very active and involved public. Before the pandemic, we had in-person PIMs. We had over 800 attendees at the PIMs that we had here in Mequon and down at Nicolay High School. That's a lot of attendees for a highway project. We've done some virtual PIMs for noise walls in late 2020 and this past spring. We're going to do a quarter-wide newsletter mailing soon by the end of the month, and then ongoing coordination meetings with schools, municipalities, businesses, and other stakeholders. And soon, and this has all been done on the design side, soon we start construction, and a lot of that coordination is going to move to day-to-day and keeping stakeholders apprised of all the daily lane closures that are going to take place during construction. So that's going to be ramping up here by the end of the month. And that's a wrap, and we're happy to take some questions. Okay for us to call on it, or with that?
Well, why don't we start, there were a couple of people who registered to speak. If we could, why don't I go through those, and then, and we'll go through whether the audience has some questions, and bring it back to the council. Is that okay with everybody?
That's great.
Mr. Gilbert Lindeman had a question mark on whether you wish to speak. If you would like to speak, if it's just a question, say it from there. If you've got something more to say, please come to the podium.
I'm not sure. I didn't hear anything said about the noise barriers, and that was what my question was going to be about.
Gentlemen?
Sure. So there will be two noise barriers within the Mequon area that are installed. That'll be constructed. One is on the west side of the freeway at Highland Road, heading toward the south, so where Newcastle Place is. And then there's a second one going in just south of Mequon Road on the west side of the freeway. That's a shorter wall, not as long, but that's the second noise wall that's going in.
Can you explain how those are, some of us may have heard this before, but people in the audience may not have. How are those locations chosen?
Sure. Yeah, anytime we have a large project like this, it's called a Type 1 project, we're doing expansion or something along those lines, we do a noise analysis of the entire corridor. And we have a very detailed noise model that we put together that gets calibrated with actual field readings, actually noise measurements out in the field to establish the validity of that model. And then we model the entire corridor with using future traffic volumes. And for us, our design year is 20 years past construction. So the design year that we use is 2045. And that's taking the existing traffic today and forecasting it out based on future development plans or typical development that occurs, forecasting that traffic out to 2045, and then using those volumes to determine the noise levels that'll be occurring throughout the corridor. It's taking the new freeway, the 3 lanes in each direction that we'll be constructing, it's using that in the model, as well as, like I said, any future development that would be out there as well. So once we have that model, we can then pretty accurately identify noise levels throughout the corridor, and we go basically house by house, business by business, and from the model we can get a future noise reading at each one of those properties. So then we're able to determine who is impacted specifically. That's kind of the first question, is where are the impacts? And if there are impacts, are we able to feasibly build a barrier that could reduce that impact? And there's a set level by federal highways at what that level is. Like with residential properties, 66 decibels is the cutoff, so anybody above that is considered impacted. So we then determine, are we able to reduce it?
What is that compared to 66 decibels? Can you compare it to some other noise? Just so
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
What would be a good, how about, I have a great chart that I could, I don't have that with me. Andy will look that up quick, and we'll give you a frame of reference. So yeah, once we determine the impacts, then we just figure out if a barrier could be constructed to reduce it. If it can, then the second test is at a reasonable cost. And we're limited, there's a statewide noise policy, which was approved by federal highways, that limits how much we can spend per benefited receptor. And the idea there is that it needs to be a uniform system statewide, and all states have that, so that there's limited funds available, and so we have to put the money where the need is greatest. And so if the wall is feasible and if the wall is reasonable, then we'll put it to a vote. And those that are benefited by the wall, we send ballots to them as well as a lot of information, and they're able to vote on it. And if it's a simple majority of those that return the ballots, then we'll construct the wall.
Thank you. I saw another hand up there, sir, at the white shirt. Yes, you. Yeah, if you're going to say anything more than a short question, please come to the podium.
Yeah. Yeah, both. Yeah, both those intersections will be signalized with the ramps.
The gentleman right in front of the gentleman who just spoke, I think that, I can't tell if that's a gentleman or a lady, but right in front of the person who just spoke, apologize, it's hard with masks.
Yeah, that's certainly not something that's part of the project. We coordinate regularly with the DNR, and they're the ones that give us recommendations as far as handling, wetland impacts, impacts to wildlife, threatened endangered species, that type of thing. And that hasn't been something that I guess has been discussed before. I don't know how effective that would be. I don't know how you would direct an animal to use an underpass or something.
Yeah, I think it'll be better, I'd appreciate it if people would come to the podium, because it's really hard to hear, for example. So if you have a question, if you can step forward, and we'll go, whoever comes in order, to the podium, please.
Just one follow-up comment with the, oh,
Can you come to
Now,
the podium,
if you'd
please?
like to speak, please come to the podium.
Come to the podium. We can't hear you from here.
Yeah.
I can't hear.
But theoretically, the monetary costs associated with constructing and maintaining wildlife crossings are trumped by the benefits associated with protecting wildlife populations, reducing property damage to vehicles, and saving the lives of drivers and passengers by reducing the number of wildlife vehicle collisions. And it would be easy to track how many collisions we've had in Mequon with wildlife, and to see the amount of damage to, and where those, where there's a significant amount of those crashes occurring on the highway, because, and then based on that, decide where the location of a wildlife crossing would be. There's wildlife crossings all over the country incorporated into highways.
With your research, did it show wildlife crossings for larger animals such as deer, or smaller like turtles and things like that?
We do have box culverts that are designed to have low flow channels underneath the freeway, which helps with aquatic fish passage and aquatic animals. So with the box culverts, we do design them in a way that allows wildlife to cross the freeway safely.
If I could, can I just go back? You had just a frame of reference for decibel
Oh, sure.
reading. Sure, we have a chart here. So a couple different things. A business office, 60 to 65 decibels. Normal conversation, 60 to 70. Vacuum cleaner, 75.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions. First of all, is this presentation going to be available on the website or something so that we can go through it? And also, are the results of your noise studies available somewhere online?
Yeah, they're on the project website.
There are on the
Yes.
project. Because just a comment, my wife and I walk Lakeshore Drive every day, and you have to have your volume almost full on your earbuds in order to hear it over the freeway noise, and that's just north of Highland Road. And you're only doing the south and west of Highland Road, right, for sound barriers? Okay. Probably because of the density of the housing, is that what it is? Yeah, that's what I kind of figured.
Yeah, the other thing with noise barriers too is they're effective for anyone within 300 feet of it.
Yeah.
Sound's a wave, so if there's a
And
barrier,
we're
it
up on
goes
the hill
and
up
over, and if
above,
you're up-
so.
And the farther away you get, they're not effective anymore. The sound wave comes back down, and if you're more than 300 feet, it's as if that.
So it'll
barrier
work
goes up.
well for Newcastle, but it wouldn't work well for us, right? I think that's true. One other question I had, I noticed when you showed the Highland Road interchange, there was a massive block of concrete on the west side. What is that? Is that like a roundabout, or what is that diamond thing that I see there?
The southbound ramps. On the left side you're talking about?
Yeah, on the left side, which
Yeah, the
is,
southbound off-ramp and then the southbound on-ramp.
oh, it just looks like a massive amount of concrete, big, compared to the one on the right. You know, on the right side of the
Sure.
the east side, it just, because the lanes are wider there or something, or it just looked like a lot to me, so I just
Yeah,
was
it gets
questioning.
into the turn lanes that are needed
Yeah.
based on the traffic. And then that east side is also that tight diamond that I mentioned to squeeze in there between the freeway
Okay,
and the railroad.
so that's gonna
That
be
kinda
to the
limits
west
the-
of the railroad tracks instead of
Yes.
over the railroad tracks, so you don't have to build additional bridges.
No, there is a bridge over the railroad. That's that
Oh.
dark rectangle right underneath
Okay,
Highland Road.
I
Yeah,
see.
that's a bridge. But the off-ramp and then the on-ramp are between the freeway and the railroad.
And there'll be no impact to the biking/walking lanes on Lakeshore then?
No.
Because you're staying west of that. Okay, one other comment I had was, as you divert traffic, when there's closures and so forth, I hope that traffic is gonna be diverted to Port Washington Road, not to Lakeshore. Is that correct, or?
Okay, you want to touch on the detour?
Yeah, there'll be nights when we need to close the freeway for overhead bridge demolition, sometimes for traffic stage changes when we need to redo the pavement marking, when we're pouring a bridge deck overhead, and correct that there will be no signage directing traffic to Lakeshore Drive. They'll be directed to Port Washington Road.
Okay, that's a great thing. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I saw at least one other hand over there. Okay. Then the sir in the front row. Can you go to the podium? It really is hard to hear up here.
Sound barrier, you mentioned that sound barriers being erected on the south of Mequon Road. Is on both sides?
Just the west side.
Just the west side. What about the east side?
No.
And the decibels there on that side is gonna be below where you mentioned?
I would have to look to see, because as I mentioned, it's either there's first an impact, and then is it reasonable in terms of cost to be able to build it, depending how many affected, we call them receptors, are in that particular area.
Yeah, my building's right east of that. And now we hear a lot of noise
Sure.
during certain seasons. And with the three-lane expansion, I would expect it to be a lot more.
Not a lot more, it goes up some. Now the traffic, right now, there won't be a jump in traffic, just because it's spread out more, and perhaps there's less stopping and starting if it's busy and that kind of thing, so it actually flow a little bit better. But eventually volume does certainly pick up, as the area develops.
Envisioning
And another
cutting it off
question
pretty
on
quick.
that is that with the freeway lanes, on the east side, is gonna be further expanded east or staying where the boundary is?
Right at Mequon Road?
Yeah.
The additional lane goes to the inside, so
To the inside?
Yeah.
The
Toward
inside.
the
Yep,
median?
yeah, because there's a lot of width in the median, and so we don't expand out, we move towards the
The
middle.
east boundary remains the same.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Chuck? And then we do have to, are there more people who are going to have questions? We kind of need to, we've got a long meeting in front of us this evening.
Hopefully this will be very quick to explain. Seems we're on this, well, you were on the Mequon Road interchange, please. All I would like to know is what's the plan for the traffic control at each of the intersections on either side of the interchange there?
At Mequon?
Yes.
Yeah, those will be signalized. There'll be traffic signals there. Are you talking about just the long-term ultimate conditions?
Yes.
Yeah, there'll be traffic signals there.
Okay, similar to what there is at Mequon Road and
Which interchange were you asking about?
the new Mequon Road
At
interchange.
Highland?
I mean, you're right, I'm
Highland?
sorry. You're right, Highland.
No, Highland.
My apologies.
Yeah, Highland will be stop-controlled intersections.
Stop controlled?
Correct.
Yeah, the volume there is going to be quite a bit less than at Mequon Road, for example.
Well, yeah, that's true. It's just that sometimes with the out-of-state drivers at Concordia, they sometimes don't understand that some of the traffic rules around here are a little bit different than in Iowa or someplace, because I had an incident with a young Iowan driver who thought they were in the right and weren't. So that's why I was just wondering how this was going to be controlled. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Last question, sir. And we'll see if anybody up here has any.
I have a question maybe to the department and to the council as well. I'm wondering if any consideration has been given to contractors working in the area, given the fact that land is at a premium through the entire corridor. Contractors are going to be required to have laydown yards, batch plant sites, asphalt plant sites, crushing sites, things of that nature, and there's just not a lot of property along the entire corridor. So has the city and has the DOT given any consideration to setting aside certain parcels or dedicating anything to assist in the construction of this project?
Yeah, so certainly we do look at what's available in terms of land. An example would be at the Brown Deer Road interchange in Milwaukee County. Currently there are the big loop ramps there. That interchange type is changing, where it'll be a lot more compact, and so there's available there for that type of thing. We try to look at that. Ultimately, it's up to the contractor to make their own arrangements, either with a private landowner or to approach DOT. We don't always know exactly how big of a site they're looking for. They certainly know that better than we do, but we do try to provide them with some general options as to what might work, within a corridor.
Has the city given any consideration to anything?
Well, we'll if somebody wants to have some conversations, but this is probably not the time to go through those discussions. But thank you. Questions from the council? Alderman Strelchak.
I think we talked in 2011, back in the day. The one thing that I did notice in the new design is that on the Highland Road interchange, Newcastle right now with the elderly drivers, they're exiting onto Highland Road, taking a left, and then waiting for the signalized light to turn left to go southbound on Port Road, because it's a challenge for them to get out. In 2011, I addressed this concern and this issue. You've taken that ability for them with this new design out, but haven't given them any safe exit and entrance in and out of their property. We talked about maybe signalizing a corner to assist in that, or doing something on some level to help those elderly drivers to continue to be able to pass through the city and be safe in their elderly years. What can we ask of you today, knowing that the design is pretty well written, to address that issue and concern moving forward so those residents have safe passage of the city?
Yeah, that is something we took another look at. And on Highland, where their existing driveway is, they're going to be able to make a right-hand turn, get in toward where that median end is, and there'll be a U-turn option. It'll be wide enough in there for a U-turn to swing around, go back toward Port and Highland, and then make that left at the signal.
Okay.
That's something we discussed with engineering here at Mequon, and thought it was a good idea.
And you're great. Thank you.
Yep.
That was
Other
the biggest
questions?
concern I had.
Alderman Durbin?
I just had one at the intersection of Port Washington and County Line. Once that gets redone, are there plans to have that signalized? It's been a issue on and off for us at the city for a while, but the county controls the intersection, and there's, no one really wants to do anything. But now that it's all being reconstructed, some of the traffic movements in there in the morning are horrendous because traffic is fast on Port Road, and you sometimes have timid drivers trying to merge into that, or sometimes over aggressive ones that just pull out in the middle of traffic, and then it really should be signalized. It's quite a disaster. I'm surprised we don't have more issues, but there's close calls all the time. Fortunately, not so many crashes, but do you have any details on that available?
So, yeah, that is something we've looked at certainly over the years. The county doesn't control the intersection, and that's maybe a bit of the issue. There are four jurisdictions right at that same intersection with both counties, Bayside and Mequon, all right there. And so we've said that we potentially could signalize it, but none of those are state roadways, so somebody would have to take the ownership and maintenance of that signal, and no one has wanted to do that.
I'd be open to considering it. I don't speak for everyone, but someone's got to do the right thing, and just to have four people pointing at each other, not wanting to take ownership of it, it doesn't do the right thing for the public. I don't know how the rest of my comrades feel up here, but
What's a discussion to have at Public Works?
correct, yeah.
There, please.
We'll consider it, so let's keep the dialogue open.
Alderman
I
Schneider.
was just going to second, I've had a lot of communication with you years back when this was coming to fruition about that same intersection, that people are really frustrated driving there, and we can leave it at that.
And just one point to that intersection, that's in the project that we just turned in final plans for a week ago, and it'll be let in December. So if something does move on that, it would have to move really fast.
Thank you.
It's not currently in the plans that are set to be let.
Any other questions from the council? Alderman Meyer.
Just a quick one here, and since you have it up, how far back from the Diamond on-off ramp area over there, how far back is the Highland Road and Powashan Road intersection from that? Because it looks like it's way far back in your picture, but it's
Just
not.
off the picture. I don't have that distance
Okay.
in front of me.
It's probably like 750 feet away.
Okay. Seems to be like a lot closer than that, but because then one intersection right after another intersection like that is a little problematic, but thank you.
I have one question. You've given, Alderman Boucher. You gave because the plan is already largely done. It's more about scheduling. Is part of the reason we're doing this. You have your years and your blocks that kind of, but every construction project deviates from plans because things come up and what have you. How will the city know when you're starting things? When the next step is happening, is there communication with staff? Is there something publicly on websites? How will people know to look forward to the ramp is going to be closed next week? You'll have some signage, but
Sure.
just
Yeah, and Andy had touched on that just a little bit, where it's starting a transition from the design side, which is what we are, to construction. And once construction starts, they have weekly traffic meetings, and there's a whole host of stakeholders invited, be it Mequon Police, Mequon Engineering, Fire, all sorts of folks are invited to those meetings. We have the 511 website statewide, and this project will be part of that. We also have the design website, which will point folks to that 511 website. That'll have all those updates on there as far as lane closures, what's coming up, like a 2 or 3 week look ahead, what closures will be coming, what detour routes are. So certainly available on the website, but then also those weekly construction meetings. Someone from Mequon will likely be part of that if they choose to as well.
so for the public standpoint, it will be incumbent upon our staff to make sure that gets into our e-newsletter on a very consistent, regular basis, so the city knows what's coming. And for people who don't get our city e-newsletter, this is a good opportunity to sign up for it. Anybody else? If not, thank you. Go ahead, Alderman Boucher. I didn't know.
So you gave through all the construction, and I believe when you had those meetings, as you showed the picture, you also discussed what some of the long-term impacts would be, not on Highway 43, but some of the aside from Highland Road. So what do you foresee as like the largest traffic pattern changes you'll see? Obviously, ambulances can go right from the highway to the hospital or students to college. Are those the biggest changes, or are there other changes you see in the traffic flow?
Yeah, that would definitely be the largest, called origin destination, as far as, yes, it's not available today, so certainly that'll be a shift. Anything else, Andy, that
Just
you think?
like right now, the northbound exit, the County Line Road is south of County Line Road. It goes right to Port Washington Road. That northbound exit ramp is moving further to the north, and it'll exit at right at the Port Washington Road Bridge north of County Line Road. And because of that, actually, there will be less traffic going through that Port Road, County Line Road intersection. So that should help out in the future with the traffic control at that intersection.
So there should be less traffic, likewise, getting off at Mequon Road and then going up Port Road to get to those destinations.
Yeah, exactly. And the Port Road traffic volumes are projected to go down between Mequon and Highland Road because traffic will shift to use Highland instead of the Mequon Road interchange.
Now are we done? Thank you both very much. This was quite useful.
Thanks for having us.
And for people who want to rewatch this, it does get posted to our website on the meeting agenda page, the video of this meeting. So if you have friends who didn't see it and you think there's something worthwhile, please point it out to them. Thank you all. The next item on our agenda is an ordinance to rezone the land, to public hearing to go into, excuse me, the next item on the agenda is a public hearing on ordinance 2021-1593. And this is to rezone land at 9961 North Bear Road from R2B, R1B and floodway to R2B, R4 and floodway, and to rezone the property next door from R4 to R2B. This was recommended by the Planning Commission on May 24th. First reading at the Common Council on June 8th. Is there a motion to go into public hearing?
Move to go into public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of going to public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
We're in public hearing. Did anybody come to speak on this issue this evening? Yes, sir. Please step to the mic. It's your property. Guessing we're not going to have a whole lot of discussion, but if you want to say something, you may.
At the podium.
And then please step to the microphone.
When I initially started this project, I owned both parcels that were adjacent to each other. And over the years, I've been in this community for 30 years. And over the years, I've developed my properties, put, outbuildings on the property. I've raised horses. I have a riding arena. And I also had a house next to the property that was also part of the, overall property. And over the years, I've noticed that I really need to start cleaning up the way the property lines work. Because in the early years, it was just convenient just to put a building out there and have it associated with and move some simple, add one property to another property and just make it, a single parcel. But, what had happened over the years is that the main primary home, which is the home that has the most value to it, is associated with a very small lot. And the house that has the least value is associated with the main parcel that has all the outbuildings. So my objective was to start moving around some of the property lines and just saying, okay, instead of a 3/4 acre here, we'll make this house a 3/4, and we'll move that 3/4 acre or that 5-6 acres over to the other parcel and just swap the property lines. Simple as that. Now, once we started with the project, I talked to Jack Zader about this, and he didn't think it was a big deal. I went and moved the property lines. I submitted the survey to him, and then all kinds of things started. That I had to sacrifice my land and quick deed in the land, which is 30 feet for over 450 feet in front of the parcel, okay, over to the city. Well, that's a 1/4 acre of property that I have to give to the city in order for them to agree to let me
switch my own property lines on my own property. I find that convoluted and ridiculous. There's no reason why the city needs to get quick deeded my property. I've been here for over 30 years. I paid for that property. I have paid property tax on that property. I have developed that property, and now they want to steal a quarter acre away from me for a residential road? And I'm the only one on the road that has the residential property that's going to have to give up its property to the city, being taken away from me by the city of Milwaukee. Just confiscated. Now I got property here in Mequon being taken away from me. It's too much. I'm not willing to do it. So if I have to give up property to the city in order to rearrange the property lines on my own property, then it's not worth it to me. This is ridiculous. And I don't know where this became a good idea to do. You know, when was it a good idea for the citizens of this community to give up their property to the city because on their whim they just want it for whatever reason? I don't remember voting on that type of ordinance, and I'm not going to agree to it now. So, you can decide on it one way or the other. The property division is going to stand the way it is. If you want to rezone it, fine. If you don't care. My estate will figure it out at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zenz. Anybody else here to speak in the public hearing? Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're going to take up each one of these ordinances as they go. Ms. Tollison, I assume you're the person who is going to answer questions regarding this ordinance? Mr. Zenz, you certainly can come to the table if you're the applicant.
Good evening, Council. Nice to see everyone again.
In person?
So, could you give us a little presentation and explain your position on what we just heard?
Sure. So there's two existing parcels. The land division maintains two parcels at the end of the day. Currently, one of the parcels has split zoning on it. So with the change in the lot lines, the new zoning associated with each one of those new lots will appropriately match the lot size that's desired for each one. So one property has a home with a barn on it right now. The other property just has a home on it. Essentially, the change will help associate the barn with the other house. When the land division was provided to staff as part of the Planning Commission application request, it was identified that the lot that would be about 0.75 acres and zoned with the 0.75 acre zoning district was deficient in its lot size. So the boundary line adjustment would have to be modified. In addition, the right-of-way for Bear Road had not been taken previously, so as part of the rezoning and the boundary line adjustment, we made the recommendation to Planning Commission that the right-of-way be dedicated as part of the rezoning, which would mean the boundary line adjustment between the two lots needed to further accommodate for that. And that was approved by Planning Commission as a condition of the rezoning. It's not a necessity, but it was staff's recommendation.
Council, Alderman Parrish.
Yeah, so if he didn't deed the 30 feet over today, we wouldn't be removing our right-of-way, right? Correct? The right-of-way exists for when we need it, so.
The ultimate road right-of-way is not provided at that location for Bear Road. So we have an ultimate road right-of-way map that's adopted by ordinance by the council. We do not have the full right-of-way for Bear Road at this location, or other locations on Bear Road, or other locations throughout the city. When a land division comes forward, we typically get that right-of-way dedicated.
Got it. And so the concern is that if you ever need to expand the road, for example, in that specific location, there wouldn't be there's no right-of-way there, and there won't be moving forward, so therefore we'd have to negotiate some kind of agreement for the road.
Correct. And that, that area of Bear Road, again, typically it is taken as and dedicated as part of the land division. That part of right-of-way, or that part of Bear Road, has some transitional uses on it. There's both single-family there. It's relatively undeveloped on the west side of the road. At the north end, there is industrial uses. There have been interests in the past about being able to expand public sewer and water south on Bear Road. So obviously, to do any public infrastructure improvements, if and when there would ever be a different type, more residential development in that area or additional industrial development, those public infrastructure needs might necessitate that right-of-way.
Well, that property also has been removed
Sir,
out of
sir, we
MSD.
do get recognized at
Well, I just
dock.
want the facts to be correct.
What,
Those were my questions. Thank you.
Thank
I mean, it sounds like we can't defer, do this. We don't have the right of way, so this is our chance to get it. Is he deeding it over now or just creating a right of way?
Well, the way in which to make the adjustments to the two existing lots is either through a certified survey map or a boundary line adjustment. If it weren't for the right-of-way, dedication, the boundary line adjustment's the easiest way to go about it. Because this right-of-way issue was a surprise to the applicant, we did consult with the city attorney and asked that he provide the necessary documentation to dedicate the right-of-way, even with the boundary line adjustment, so that there wouldn't be an additional cost, at least for the mechanism of doing the land division for the applicant, and the city attorney agreed to provide that.
Okay, thanks.
We'll come back to you in a second, sir. Other questions? Anybody? Mr. Zenz, you wanted to
Well,
say?
we're talking about, if you're gonna do the entire street and have everybody forfeit 30 feet of their property, that, some of these properties are at a minimum size to begin with. So thus, the zoning's gonna have to change if you go about this anyways. There are only about 12 residents on this street. The street has been removed under the MMSD program, so no sewer is ever planning on going down there currently. And it has been taken off, and it's off the MMSD expansion program also. So the bottom line is that this idea that we have to give up our property in order for something that is not proposed or is going to be proposed in the future, and it is a low-lying area to begin with, very swampy, right? I have no idea why that my property has to be subject to giving up its property and its right-of-way to the city. The city already has a right-of-way to do whatever they want down the road, all right? In fact, when you did widen the road, I did lose 10 feet and a bunch of trees in front of my house when you widened the road the last time, all right? It was widened only on the west side of the road, not on the east side of the road. So, they had the right-of-way to do that. But this idea that I need to give up and quick deed my property to the city just because I asked for a simple property line change doesn't make any sense to me. And if you did that, there's other property that's in that area that wouldn't conform if you gave up their property either, because they're at the minimums of what those properties are supposed to be for their zoning.
Thank you.
So it doesn't make any sense to me.
Other comments or questions or motion? Alderman Boucher.
So I have a question as part of the discussion here. If we vote on this tonight, and let's say it was favorable, what the Zens have expressed an interest in actually not wanting it to happen, are we forcing it to happen if we vote on it tonight in a favorable way?
Well, the condition of the rezoning includes that stipulation. If the applicant chose to remain status quo with the properties as currently platted, then this rezoning, that condition never is triggered and the rezoning never takes place.
Okay.
I mean, one alternative would be to remove the requirement from the, to approve this without that requirement also, with the road right-of-way. Alderman Nurbin.
I just decided to bring up my old friend Google Maps, and I'm looking at it. Maybe staff can correct me if I'm wrong, but if they give up 30 feet, some of the structures probably don't conform to setback anymore. Are they going to need variances and waivers for that? That's certainly true of some of the other properties on this stretch. I mean, I understand why we asked for it, but it seems like if we have no intention of ever widening this road more or building anything, why are we doing it now? What's the rationale?
Well, I don't think we can say that we never intend to widen the road or do anything with it. I mean, clearly the ultimate road right-of-way that's been established through our ordinance suggests otherwise. I don't have the measurements with the ortho in front of me as part of the packet.
Well, I'm just going off there's a parcel, rather large parcel to the north of 54 acres that has that set aside.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's real easy to look at the scaling, and if you take 30 feet, oh, that's loud. If you take 30 feet off some of the parcels adjacent to it, maybe you're like 10 feet from their window in their front yard.
Alderman Boucher.
So I have a follow-up then. If we were to make an amendment not to include that distance, what would occur in the future, let's say 15 years from now, that you want to put in a sewer line or something? How would you approach their house as opposed to, or properties, as opposed to any other properties that don't have the right-of-way?
We would have to address the entire corridor to acquire that right-of-way.
Alderman Strelchak, sorry.
Kim, how many other properties or how many linear feet of property don't you have right away for already on this road?
I don't think there's the majority of the right-of-way is taken on the road.
I'm looking at Zaki GIS. Most of it is not obtained.
I think at the north end, there's probably more of the majority of it.
In the north, you have half to the west and not to the east, and from that point south, none of it.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve this and remove the contingency for the right-of-way.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Thank you for speaking out. We listen.
Any discussion on the motion? I would just add, I knew there was an issue before it went to Planning Commission. Was told that it had been resolved. Mr. Zenz wasn't there, so I didn't know that it was still an issue, or I would have raised this at that time. So I think this is good that we're taking this up now. We have a motion and a second. There's no further discussion. Please call the roll.
Alderman Strelchak,
Aye.
Alderman Bushy.
Aye.
Alderman Meyer,
Aye.
Alderman Hancher.
Aye.
Alderman Garrell.
Aye.
Alderman Parrish.
Aye.
Alderman Schneider.
Aye.
Alderman Nurbin.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The next public hearing is ordinance. Thank you, Mr. Zenz. Have a good evening. The next ordinance is 2021-1594. This is the chicken ordinance. It was recommended by Public Welfare on June 8th, 2021. There was a recommendation to deny by the Planning Commission on June 28th. First reading at the Common Council on July 13th. Is there a motion to go into public hearing?
To go into public hearing?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of going to the public hearing, say aye.
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 We do have a few people who have registered to speak. I believe 4 people. We'll take them in the order that they were handed to me. Please keep your comments to less than 5 minutes. The first person who's registered to speak is Daniel Dunar. Mr. Dunar, are you here? If you'd speak You don't want to speak? Okay, but he is, oh, I'm sorry, it does say you don't wish to speak, but he does support the ordinance change. The next person is Mr. Dave Labonte. He registered to speak in support, and yes, he would like to speak. Mr. Labonte.
I have to believe chickens is everyone's favorite topic here at this board. We know it came up in the past, and we're trying to get this lot size reduced here. I'm not sure, it doesn't say in here what size we're shooting for from 1.5, or do we have a?
It's currently 1.5. The ordinance would change it to 0.75.
0.75. Okay, so I mean, I'm here to advocate for that for sure. I would point out that most of our surrounding communities don't have a lot size at all. We have, you know, setback restrictions, certain rules of keeping them, and things like that. But I think it's a reasonable request that I would ask that if we can have a dialogue to those who oppose that, that would be helpful to understand what the issues are with not granting this request.
Thank you, Mr. Labonte.
Yep.
The next person who signed up was Ms. Heather Labonte. She supports the change. She did not mention whether she wants to speak or not. Ms. Labonte, no? Okay. And the final person who registered to speak was Ms. Iris Fiber or Feber, I apologize, from Woodland Court, and she would like to speak. She in support.
I'm speaking on behalf of Brandy Wolf and her family who own chickens. They're neighbors of mine. However, her chickens were taken away. So just to dispel some myths and to update on some facts. So chickens are omnivorous and eat pests that destroy home gardens and are beneficial vegetation. They actually work the soil with their feet and assist in some of the labor involved in gardening and lawn care. Using chickens to control pests is not only a cost savings, but is more environmentally friendly and better for people who are sensitive to chemicals. Chickens naturally control the population of harmful insects, including bees, wasps, hornets, and other stinging insects. People such as herself who are highly allergic to these insects can enjoy garden and enjoy time in their yards safely when surrounded by the flock. Chickens also eat and can significantly help control the population of mosquitoes, which everyone knows carry diseases. To this day, they still carry the Zika virus, West Nile, chikungunya virus, and a whole bunch of others. They also threaten our pets by carrying heartworms. Chickens greatly reduce the amount of household food waste produced each year and reduce the amount of organic waste sent to landfills. Backyard flocks are healthier for the environment overall compared to large commercial farms. The animals are kept more humanely, and the odors and manure are more reasonably managed in smaller quantities. Commercial chicken houses produce tons of manure each year, and I won't get into that right now. Many people don't realize that chickens can be great companion animals, lots of personality, and raising a flock is a great way to instill positive values in your children. They can help your kids learn more about responsibility as well as the value of hard work and the value of life. When you raise chickens, you get to reap the rewards of your hard work every single day. Once your kids see how caring for an animal can produce some major benefits, they'll learn that there are some things in life that are just worth doing yourself. Not only are they inexpensive, but they're one of the easiest and quickest pets to raise from childhood to adulthood. In the process, they can teach your kids a lot about basic biology, avian behavior, and the circle of life. Clearly, the biggest benefit of backyard chickens is the eggs. When kept properly, free-range or privately raised chickens produce better tasting, more nutritious eggs. For clarity, she uses the term free-range as a situation where chickens aren't kept in metal cage their whole life. They have access to natural surroundings and natural food sources such as insects, not the ability to run loose around a property. I'm just going to skip a little bit. With reasonable rules and guidelines, there's a chance to make positive changes for landowners in Mequon. consider reducing the amount of land required to have chickens on private property in Mequon. Please allow us to control dangerous insects on our properties without harsh and costly chemicals. Please allow our children the chance to raise these particular animals as loving pets and contributing members of the family. Please allow us the opportunity to have fresher, more nutritious food because we are willing to work for it. Now, certain myths that need to be dispelled. Chickens are dirty and smelly. Chickens spend hours each day dust bathing and meticulously preening themselves to maintain good hygiene. They do not smell, their waste does, and all animal waste smells. Chicken produce roughly 1 ounce of feces per day, which is nitrogen rich and useful for fertilizer. Dogs produce roughly 12 ounces of feces per day, which is pathogenic and unusable. Myth, chickens hurt property values. Most chicken owners take pride in their co-ops and therefore install creative and pleasant landscape enclosures to house their flocks. And myth, chickens are noisy. Hens are not ordinarily noisy, and roosters are no noisier in volume or frequency than barking dogs. A barking dog at 1 meter, I could have maybe intervened before, but a barking dog is 70 decibels to 100 decibels. A lawnmower at 1 meter is 107 decibels. A rooster is 48 decibels. Chickens require a lot of land. That's a myth. Chickens require no acreage to be well kept. Chickens attract rodents and predators. Rodents and predators reside in every neighborhood and are much more attracted to food sources such as seed and wild bird feeders and trash cans. Skunks, raccoons, and other small hunters frequent backyards, whether or not chickens are kept there. In fact, chickens are happy to attack and eat mice. Myth. Chickens are only kept for egg production and therefore flock size should be regulated. Chickens are kept for many reasons: eggs, pets, therapy animals, show birds, 4-H projects, and heritage breed preservation. Another piece of information she included was that in 1918 it was our patriotic duty to keep hens. I brought in just more clarification. When it comes to chickens attracting rodents and predators, so chicken keepers are simply more aware of the threat predators pose to their pets than the average homeowner because we spend a lot of time, a lot of money implementing safeguards to prevent losses to them. I don't know, I've got a 6-foot fence, so it's different in my situation, but
Ms. Feber, I'm
that's it.
We're kind of past
Okay.
well past the 5 minutes, but thank you very much.
Sorry about that. I just
No
wanted to
problem.
make sure you had all the info. There's a lot of myths if you have
No problem. Those are the only people who registered to speak this evening on this. If you'd like to speak, step forward and state your name for the record, then please.
Hi, my name's Tanith Korvai. I have a 1-acre lot, and I would love to be able to have a couple of chickens outside, partly because I can't have indoor pets due to allergies, and I don't feel comfortable having a dog living outside, and also because I want eggs and food security, and generally just like chickens. So I'm all for this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Move to close public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion on this ordinance?
Move to accept the ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Alderman Meyer.
I was on public welfare when we first took a look at this and spent a lot of time on it. The 1.5 was a compromise because what we did not want to do was to have the majority of the city open to it at the time, and thought that the size, the 1.5, did the necessary area that chickens would need. We also did it for the fact of that it wouldn't encumber the neighbors as much with that. So, you know, some of the things that are, you know, said about, you know, having chickens on the property and saying that it doesn't draw predators, things of that nature, and it does. If you read any type of literature on it, it does. It draws predators to the area, and you know, frankly, I'm not feeling comfortable with the fact of voting in favor of it when we would be doing that to our residents, bringing those into the area. Not the chickens, but the predators additional into it. I applaud the people that are trying to be, to raising the chickens and to being self-sustaining in that, and I applaud them doing that. But the problem is what we're doing is we're subjecting our residents to this for a small amount of people that want to have this happen. I don't think it's going to be rampant all over the place. There'll be a lot of them, but it's going to cause problems and with neighbors. And I know that some of the neighbors have to sign off on this and that. But subsequently, even though the next person moving in would probably be well aware that there's chickens over there next to them, but there's going to be some issues with that. Now, whether we have the zoning enforcer going out there, whether we have the police department going out there when we have the different complaints, I think so what we're doing here is we're putting more stress on our city staff and putting more stress on the rest of the law enforcement. I think it's a bad move doing it. We went over this, I think we went like 2 years over this to do this for it. And like I said before, it was a good compromise with the 1.5 to do it because we reduced what it was allowed for beforehand. And can't vote in favor of it just because a few people want to have that done to subject the rest of the residents to something of this. So I'll be voting against it and probably be the only one, it seems like. So I have to go along with the planning commission. They must have had some good ideas to be that many of them against it. So
Alderman Garrow.
I was on public welfare at that time also, and Alderman Mayor made the same argument that it attracts predators. And my point at that time is that I have a bird feeder in my backyard. And the bird feeder attracts turkeys, it attracts deer, it attracts squirrels, it attracts rabbits, it attracts all kinds of wildlife that a predator would eat. And if we say, well, chickens, are they're going to attract, then we should really, if we're afraid of predators, we should just get rid of all the bird feeders. We have had, that I know of, Director Thompson, have you had any complaints whatsoever since we approved the chicken ordinance 2-3 years ago?
Complaints about the existing chickens on properties? No, we've had a couple inquiries about whether there were permits taken out for some of the chickens.
And wasn't there just about, 4 permits?
Yes, I think we have 3 or 4 on record right now.
So we approved this and there was no problems whatsoever with neighbors, and one of my neighbors has chickens and I watch them, they're smart as heck. When she walks around the yard, then she shakes her little corn can and follows them right back into their pen. I don't have any problems whatsoever. Plus, the lady who spoke, another thing chickens eat is ticks. They eat wood ticks, and those are pretty poisonous, and they spread Lyme's disease. So, I'm all in favor of this. I think the idea that we have this, the neighbors sign off on these smaller lots. Plus, they have, they can only have 4 chickens, according to this. You can't have roosters; aren't going to make any noise. They can still make eggs, and they're kept in a pen. And I have talked to a number of people, and they said, most people want to have chickens, and then they have them, and they don't hold on to them that long. They give them away to a farmer or something else. Because they have to clean the pens. So I don't think we're going to have an overreach of people coming and asking for permits to come and do this throughout Mequon. So I'm in strong support of it. I think it adds to the rural character of our community. We have the town center, but I just love the rural character out there. I think this chicken ordinance is not going to affect anybody negatively. It'll add a little bit of character to the community, and I'm strongly in favor of it.
Anybody else? If not, please go. Alderman Schneider?
Well, I just want to reinforce the fact that other communities do not have a minimum acreage requirement. I think the main issue is some of the restrictions that we have on chickens, which makes them tolerable to the neighbors, and has made them tolerable even to people in Wauwatosa, where they have much smaller lots than we have. And that's the fact that there aren't that many of them, that there's 4 or less, that they have to be kept in an enclosure, and that they have to have setbacks, and they have to be in the backyard, and they have to be closer to your own home than the backyard neighbors. So I think that these are the kinds of things that are making it so that we can have them on lots that may be an acre instead of an acre and a half. I know that there are some people that have smaller than 1.5 acres who do have a few chickens, and just the fact that no neighbors have chosen to complain to anybody about it makes me think that that is probably workable. I'm not advising it. I would say that the one of the people that approached me about this has 1.43 acres, and part of me wanted to say, and her neighbors had already signed off on it, part of me wanted to say, nobody will know, but she said that she wanted to set a good example for children. This is the ordinance as it stands, and though she's 0.07 short, she felt that she would rather be one of the people trying to change the ordinance than not obeying the rules. And I think that that's why our community is great. I think the fact that we have some law-abiding people here who don't want to be an annoyance to their neighbors and also don't want to break the rules. So that's one of the reasons that I brought this forward.
Anyone else? Alderman Parrish?
Yeah, good conversations. I'm sorry I missed Alderman Mayer and Girl's discussion 10 years ago, but I'm glad you had it again tonight. So it was great. A lot of my residents on this matter, although I can imagine some of them reaching out to me after this, just with some concerns, which I feel like I'll be able to address. The grandfathering and the coyotes were my biggest concerns, but I'm willing to keep an open mind, and I think this is one of those situations whereby creating a permitting system, you're encouraging the rule breakers to follow the rules, and we're encouraging only good things, and it's better to know about them because they're going to be doing it anyways. So I'd rather know what chickens are there, and if it's a problem, I'll be one of the first to support amending this in 5-10 years, since Alderman Meyer will be here with the term limits and all. So thank you.
Well, I'll make a short statement. I don't feel strongly about this issue, but I also was part of that discussion a long time ago. And I can tell you that it came about because we didn't really, I don't know what the ordinance was at the time, but we had a rash of complaints about people with chickens in their yards because people weren't caring for them, people weren't taking good care of them. And that's where we came up with the ordinance. It was because we had a pretty significant number of people who were upset, saying, I came to Mequon, I bought a $750,000 home, and I've got, farm animals living next door to me. And we're upset about that, particularly in one case where somebody butchered the chickens in the backyard in front of their children. And so we passed an ordinance which probably has not been followed. I frankly don't believe that there are only 4. I know there aren't only 4 homes in Mequon with chickens. But I think I think most people don't realize right now that we're considering this. And once they start seeing chickens, and by the way, the vast majority of Mequon, or an awful lot of homes, this won't affect, because subdivisions and condominium associations already have restrictions. What you are doing is neighborhoods like Mr. Myers, Alderman Myers, that right now they can't have chickens because most of the lots are about an acre, and they don't have a way to have a restriction on them from a subdivision standpoint. His neighborhood can't have the same restriction that your neighborhood already has. So, I do wonder how many of us are making decisions for other people's neighborhoods and not their own. I don't feel strongly, but I do wish that maybe people understood this more before we vote on it. But we're going to vote on it tonight. I think there will be a backlash. Alderman Strelchek.
You know, I think the biggest issue that people would have with this ordinance, you know, at all is not necessarily the chickens themselves. I mean, I've got 2 dogs and they create more of a ruckus than 4 chickens would any day. It's the upkeep and the maintenance of the coop. It's, you know, it's the maintaining of making sure that, you know, it's sightly, and it's, you know, the enforcement would actually happen. You know, not giving people 90 and 120 days to come into compliance if their coop's out of whack is not something the city, you know, should do. They should politely ask, share that there's been complaints, and have them rectify the issue. You know, as Alderman Parrish said, you know, if this does become a problem, I definitely would consider taking this up again. I don't see a problem with the chickens themselves. I have concern about the coops and the maintenance of those. I did like, and I do want to comment on there that there was some consideration given to the HOAs in the writing of this. I think we've got a couple ordinances that come through where we don't give considerations to the HOAs, and we create a situation where a landowner by right can do something and not have to consider what the HOA does, because that's their issue and their bond, their agreement with the HOA. So, you know, as we take the HOA into consideration with this, if it is allowed or if it's not allowed, I like the fact that that was taken into consideration. So tonight I'll be voting in favor of this, but I'll be watching closely to make sure, you know, if we get a significant amount of complaints, I'll be the first one to ask to have it re-entertained at some future date.
Can we call the question? Alderman Meyer.
I just want to add one thing to it, and this isn't all the people. I don't expect people to do that, but when we originally took a look at this, I must have visited 3-4 different areas that had people that had chickens inside of it. And while they're all good people and that, none of them kept them in cages all the time. They always had them free ranging around. That was one of the issues with it, because chickens were over in their yard. So, and even though roosters weren't allowed, they had roosters. A couple of them had roosters inside there, to the fact of hiding them inside of the garages when I came by, you know, for it. So, you know, some of the measures that, you know, we put in place here for it, I don't think that people are going to be adhering to. I hope they do, you know, so we don't have issues with it. But, you know, people on this common council that live in, you know, protected areas and have their homeowners associations and that are not going to be affected by it. We will be affected by it. So I hope you take some of that into consideration when you vote on this. And you know, your HOHs probably were not going to allow it, but in our area we don't have that particular protection.
Please call the roll.
Alderman Bushy?
Aye.
Alderman Meyer?
No.
Alderman Hancher?
Aye.
Alderman Garrow?
Aye.
Alderman Parrish?
Aye.
Alderman Schneider?
Aye.
Alderman Nurbin?
Aye.
Alderman Stralchek?
Aye.
And the ordinance passes. The next item on the agenda is a potential closed session. I'll read this and then we'll vote on whether to go into closed session. The closed session would be to discuss the potential claim of Amber Schrader relating to political signage on public property. The Common Council may convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute Section 1985 1G for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, and then we'll reconvene into open session. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
Move to go into closed session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Alderman Meyer?
Aye.
Alderman Hancher?
Aye.
Alderman Garrow?
Aye.
Alderman Parrish?
Aye.
Alderman Schneider?
Aye.
Alderman Nurbin?
Aye.
Alderman Stralchek?
Aye.
Alderman Bushy?
Aye.
Mayor Wood?
Aye. We will be coming back into open session, but we're going to convene into the North Conference Room and have this discussion. I don't think it'll be real long, but For anybody who's got something after this, sorry it'll take us a few minutes. other good people who can make a real difference. Volunteerism in the world is down, and volunteers can make a real difference in a community. So I just wanted to give some recognition to Pat Marchese. I believe the city administrator does not have a report this evening.
No, I do not. Well, very well said, Mayor, in recognition of former Chair Marchese, and I do not have a report tonight. Thank you.
The next is the consent agenda. We have a total of 10 sets of minutes on the consent agenda and 2 resolutions. If I'm, hold on, my paper. Excuse me, 11 resolutions. We also have 11 sets of minutes, and we have 3 resolutions. Resolution 3867, which grants final plat approval for the residents at Foxtown. This was recommended by the Planning Commission on July 26th. Resolution 3689, which grants final plat approval for Lakeshore Estates, which again was recommended by the Planning Commission on July 26th. And Resolution 3870, a resolution granting a permanent easement to We Energies for installation of new electrical cables at the City Public Works facility. I understand that the Public Works Committee recommended approval of that item this evening. Is that correct?
We did unanimously.
So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move approval.
Second.
Well, we don't have discussion on the consent agenda. Is there any item that anyone would like to have removed from the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. We have 2 first readings this evening. I'll read them, but we typically don't discuss them. The first reading is Ordinance 2021-1596. And this is a charter ordinance amending provisions of the Mequon Municipal Code establishing terms of office for elected officials, both for aldermen, but also for the mayor, in case somebody was listening earlier and thought that it was only related to aldermen. This is recommended by the Public Welfare Committee on July 13th, and this is a first reading. The second ordinance is Ordinance 2021-1597, and this is an ordinance amending Article 2 of Chapter 2 within the Mequon Municipal Code in connection with the roles, duties, and functions of the mayor and common council. This was also recommended to you by the Public Welfare Committee on July 13th, 2021, and this is a first reading. We'll move from there into resolutions. The first resolution on our agenda this evening is Resolution 3871. This is to approve a maintenance agreement and 3 municipal finance agreements for a state-let highway project with the DOT for the County Line Road and Mequon Road interchanges. Public Works recommended this also this evening, is that correct?
It was also recommended correctly.
It was also recommended by the Sewer Utility District Commission and the Mequon Municipal Water Utility Commission.
Alderman Mayor, there is an amendment to what we approved with the sidewalks. Right at,
Yeah, that was the 2 sections of sidewalk west of
correct.
Washington.
Correct, there was an amendment to
Main,
that.
On the County Line Road, the sidewalks to.
Ms. Lundin, can you, unless somebody can explain to what we're talking about in a little more detail?
I can while she prepares.
Okay.
There's 2 sidewalks, one on the River Hills side and one on the Mequon side that begin and end and go to nowhere and never will. We just conveniently decided to strike those 2 and say we'll never take ownership of maintaining them, which will therefore trigger them never being built. That's it in a nutshell.
And Ms. Lundin, you don't see that as a problem?
No, eliminating sidewalk is not a problem.
Okay. So
In
is
general,
there, that was on the Public Works because each committee looked at something different. Is there a motion to approve this with those amendments?
so moved.
Approve as amended.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Alderman Hancher?
Aye.
Alderman Garrow?
Aye.
Alderman Parrish?
Aye.
Alderman Schneider?
Aye.
Alderman Nerben?
Aye.
Alderman Stralchuk?
Aye.
Alderman Bushy?
Aye.
Alderman Meyer?
Aye.
The next item is Resolution 3866, and this is a resolution increasing compensation for the position of mayor. It was recommended by the Finance Personnel Committee on July 13th, 2021. I would note for anybody listening that if I'm the mayor for the next 12 years, it wouldn't affect me ever, the way it's written. So it doesn't matter how many times the current mayor would be, it would be whoever the next person is. I'd also note that the current salary for the mayor was established a little over 30 years ago. So basically, this adjusts for around inflation. It also brings us to kind of the midpoint of what part-time mayors are paid for communities that are between 16 and 40,000 people. The mayor of Mequon is the lowest paid mayor of any community between 16 and 40,000 people. Not looking to get to the high point, and there are communities smaller than us where the mayor's paid more. I propose this not because I want a pay increase. It doesn't affect me. But I do think that if we want to attract good people, you at least need to compensate them a little bit, recognizing that this is a more time-consuming job than twice what an alderman is paid. So I don't know, Alderman Boucher?
No, actually, I have to wait for a motion.
What's that?
I have to wait for a motion.
Oh, yes. Is there questions, or does somebody want to make a motion? Alderman Giro.
How much is the pay going from what to what?
Let me look here. The current pay is $9,600, and I believe, I'm trying to pull it up because I should have had.
I think it was by the month, so $800 a month up to $1,800 a month. Is that
Yeah, so
accurate?
that would add $12,000 to the 90, yes. 21,600.
So it's going from 9,600 to 21,600.
Yes.
Okay, then I asked this question before, I never got an answer on it. Mayor gets a pension. The mayor gets a pension. How is this going to affect the pension? And what is, I never found out, because I know aldermen don't get pensions. What does mayor get for a pension? Is this going to affect, how is that going to affect? Because I know.
I think the city makes a contribution of and I'd have to look, but it might be something like $10 or $20 a month. It's a small amount. I learned that at the end of one term, someday when I retire, I would get something like $5 a month in retirement.
That's right? Is that
Yeah,
right, Will? Will would know that.
Currently, the contribution rate for the Wisconsin retirement system for employees under which the mayor's position would fall are equivalent to about 6.75% of compensation. So currently, with a $9,600 a year salary, 6.75% of that is probably close to $20 a month, as the mayor
What
has
did you
stated.
say, 20?
6.75% of salary. That's the current contribution rate on behalf of the city.
And it would stay that even if, when he wouldn't get the new 21.6 contribution rate then? He wouldn't get the 6%?
Yeah, it'd be 6.75 or whatever.
6.75% would apply to the higher amount proposed in the resolution.
So the pension would go up
Correct.
by that amount?
So my contribution per month it's $6.07. It would go up to somewhere around, so I was wrong, at $900 a month. It comes out to $6.07. It would slightly more than double that. So it would be somewhere like $12 or $14 a month is what the city would pay on the
For life, but
pension.
that's okay. That's not.
No, that's a contribution.
But what do you get paid? I mean, what do you get when you retire? What do you get?
Well, it depends on how long you're in the job, and also if you had other public sector. But it's some little portion of that. The city, it doesn't cost the city any more money. It comes out of the state fund but it's a few dollars a month. And I'm not even sure if there's a de minimis amount where you don't actually collect it.
And I don't have all the details regarding what the pension calculation formula for elected officials is, but given the small salary amount, as well as the few number of years that the current mayor has served as mayor, I'm not even sure he's vested for a pension at this point. But we could do some research and provide additional information.
I'd sort of like to know that because I know the last mayor we had that was important to him. So
That's because he also had been a participant in the plan, both as a fireman and I think in his prior job. So that he already had a built-up amount in the state retirement plan, and this would layer on top of that, and that was his retirement. I'm happy if I never got any of it because it doesn't count. And he may be right about vesting, but I looked it up and I found out that it'd be something like, once I turn 65, it'd be like $3 a month or something like that, based on current contributions.
You're, all right, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you just, because you haven't contributed enough money. You know, if you're contributing 6.75% of $100,000 a year over 25 years, you now have built up a retirement plan. You're pretty good at figuring out the accumulation of funds.
I just had this conversation today with Anne Marie and their son, and the son says, well, I make more money than she does. And I said, yeah, well, she's a teacher, she's gonna get a
pension,
big fat pension for life. So, you know, if you wanna make as much money as she's making in pension, you gotta save about $2 million. So that shut them up pretty quick, so anyway.
Okay.
Other questions?
I just wanted to know if it was
Sure.
a big
No.
pension or not.
No, it's about $20 a month.
McDonald's
It'll go to-
coffee to a Starbucks with maybe free cream.
Yeah. Is there a motion to approve, deny, something?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Discussion. Alderman Bushy.
So, when we had this discussion last month, I believe it was last month, I was the one dissenting. As I look at our current situation, a lot of the departments have been squeezed during this COVID time in our budget, and I definitely appreciate the post-Mayor Worth perspective on this. And I know it's not part of this, I've actually been contemplating the idea of that, even if it's a symbolic thing, because it's small, that we should be looking actually going in the other direction with alderman stipends, and I guess that would apply to the mayor as well. So I'm looking at this is not the right time, I'll look at it, for making this decision, and that there'll be plenty of time in the future when the city is back up and running at full steam to be making such a decision. You know, 125% increase from our current. Again, I understand where we're at is, in a relative sense, very low, but such a big jump, I just don't think that it's the right message to be putting out there.
Alderman Meyer.
The mayor makes the job just like committee chairs do, just like people who are volunteers do. They make the job as much as they want. And what I mean by that is that the involvement that they do, and including the mayor. Now, we've had mayors in the past, our current mayor, and other mayors, let's say like Mayor Moriarty, and also we also had Nuremberg, Christine. Those are mayors that wanted to get more involved in the total process of the city than what is really required of the job. This is a weak mayor, as was said earlier tonight, a weak mayor, strong common council, and an administrator-run city pretty much. And that's the way it's set up here to be done. Our current mayor, to his, I mean, to say that he does more than what all the other mayors in the past have done, I think I'm understating with the amount of time and effort that he puts into his position. Not all past mayors have done that, and we will get some in the future that will put a lot into the job. But you know, it is their choice to do that, and because of the fact that it takes a lot of more time and effort to do that, you know, that's their choice for doing that. I don't think that adding that amount to the mayor's salary or the mayor's amount to that is going to make a difference on who we get in here or who we don't get inside here. I think it is the character of the individual that makes them want to achieve more for the city and makes them want to do more for the city. And I don't think any type of additional compensation would draw some other people in, or would the fact of make a difference how that particular mayor would perform. So I think, you know, maybe, and going along with Alderman Boucher, that, maybe sometime in the future, maybe something additional, but I think this is a pretty huge jump in doing that, and I think it's really depends upon the character of the individual, not how much money that we would put into that office. So I will be voting against it.
Alderman Garrell.
Well, I was here for a number of years under Mayor Abendroth, and I will say that John Worth campaigned real hard for this job, and since he's been here, he's worked his butt off, much harder than
I'm not looking for
I thought the time that you put into it. But again, when I listened to Alderman Bushy and Alderman Meyer, it is the character that you put into it. The money isn't the issue. I mean, aldermen get $400 a month. I mean, I don't do this for the money. There was one time where if we wanted to keep our budget at zero increase, I was one of the people who wanted to vote for it. I'll take no pay. I'll take no pay and do this job. So I don't think that will attract anybody better because of more money. You attract a character, a person who wants to do this and wants to work hard and has a passion for doing it. So I'll probably not vote for it just because of that. I mean, we're all on here. I think just about every one of us is here because we have a passion to do this, and we're trying to do the right thing, and that's where we really get our reward from, not from the money. We get a reward from doing the right thing.
About $19,000, so that this isn't really a big increase. If you just look at what inflation would do, what could you buy with $9,800 now compared to what you could buy with it in 1991? But my other thought on it is that I would like it so that a lot of people who are going to be or will want to be mayor may have a full-time job, and it is true that mayoral duties take more daytime work than an alderman. The demands are much higher than for an alder person. So I would like it so that if someone has a full-time job and they're needing to take more and more time off to do things during the daytime, that they have some compensation for being mayor that's reasonable and fair. So I guess I just don't want you to have to be independent of money to be mayor of Mequon. So that's one of my considerations in being in favor of this. And if this does not come into play until Mayor Worth is no longer mayor of Mequon, I don't think we need to worry about the pandemic loss of money issue, because I don't think it's going to come into play.
Alderman Urban.
I had one question from one resident about the calculation of the number of hours. Maybe just expand on that. I trust the numbers. I know they're probably understated a little bit what you actually put into it.
I don't know that you can exactly calculate hours because I don't have a time clock, but I will tell you that every Tuesday I have a meeting that lasts basically all morning. You either be preparing for it or doing it. On an average week, I've got at least 2 or 3 other daytime meetings, that most of which I didn't cause or ask for. In fact, some of I've got one tomorrow that I tried saying, do you really need me there? But I think that to do the job, you do have to put in that time. I am confident that I get more emails than any of the rest of you and more phone calls, and I try to return them. I think that, so I'm not sure that you can say different mayors, and I don't want to compare myself, or this isn't, again, about me, but I think if you're doing the average job, you are putting in multiple times what an alderman did. I did both. So maybe I was too enthusiastic as mayor, but I also was equally as enthusiastic as an alderman. And there's just far more time you're going to put in. And I agree with all, so I don't know how exactly to calculate those hours. But there's some things that I do that somebody else is not going to probably do, drafting stuff and what have you. That's, setting that aside, I still believe that a mayor puts in far more time than any alderman and it may be what the cumulative amount that, it is the cumulative amount that multiple aldermen put in. You know, whether whether it was John Worth or somebody else, whoever the mayor was, would have had to have dropped half of his day on Thursday to deal with the demand letter we received. They would have had to have dropped several days when COVID first came up that wasn't in their schedule. Whether it would have had to have responded to the police chief and meet with him when there were going to be protests down Mequon Road. Now, this has been a bad year, but the point is there's always issues like that. And to suggest, and now, just so you know, you say no today, the next time you can consider this is 3 years from now. And the next time you can consider it after that is 3 years later, because you can't change a mayor's pay in the middle of a term. So the reason why this comes up now is because it's the appropriate time. If I run and I'm reelected, it has no effect. If I run and lose, or I don't run, the question is is this appropriate for the next mayor? And if I'm the mayor, then it's 3 years from now or 6 years from now or whatever. But you can only do this every 3 years. And when you talk about the city's financial situation, as was pointed out at Public Finance today, is the city's in really good financial shape right now. The city was in a world of concern a year ago. If today isn't the right time because of the economy, my guess is there's never a right time to address the issue, because the economy is doing well in America. The economy is doing well in Mequon. The budget is doing well for the city of Mequon. So those are not good excuses. Those are still, we want to be frugal. And because we're frugal, nobody addressed this issue the last 9 times it could have been addressed, or 10 times, going back 9 times, I guess, over 30 years. Many communities do this as a matter of routine. They re-examine these every couple of years. Some communities actually have, it goes up automatically. We're more frugal than that. That's fine, but they're really, if you want to say no, again, it's not going to affect me. I just think it's not the right thing, the right message. Should we have the lowest paid mayor of any community from 18,000 to 40,000, or 18,000 to 40,000 people? There is no other mayor that is paid $9,600 a year.
Thanks. I just wanted all that to come out in the discussion, because it doesn't come out in the brief.
Well,
so I guess, it's hard to write that. So I agree with some of the points. It's the character of the individual that gets put in, that takes the job and puts their time and effort into it. It's also good to show that we appreciate it, and I think that's the merit behind this, and that's why I'll vote for it.
You can't have merit pay and decide, well, we got a really good guy in the office or woman, and so therefore we're going to pay more and pay less. You're bound to pick a number. And the question is, what is the right number to at least tell the person that that their time is valued? And for whatever reason, 30 years ago, our forefathers, because I'm guessing they were all fathers at the time, no offense, decided that our foremother, Connie Pouquet, was the mayor at the time, was worth $9,600 a year. But inflation's almost doubled since then. Or it basically has doubled. Alderman Strelchak.
I'm going to agree with where the mayor is coming from on this. According to Google, I just pulled it up, the American poverty level for a family of 4 in the 48 contiguous United States is $26,500.
Well, the mayor shouldn't be living off of this.
That's my point.
Yeah.
You're not living off it before, you wouldn't be living off of it in the future if you were the mayor that it would be applying to. If any one of you can sit here today and say there isn't a cost to sitting in this seat as an alderman or a mayor, you're nuts. You know, you've either recused yourself from a vote, or you've not engaged in business with somebody that you could have engaged with on a business sense due to ethics, just to, you know, keep that high standard of sitting in the seat and representing the people of your district and the city of Mequon. The mayor has a significant amount more responsibilities. I've watched both Mayor Abendroth in my time in office and Mayor Worth and the amount of time that they've put into it. I've had Mayor Abendroth travel, and as Common Council President, I was pulled into a couple of the morning meetings before Tuesdays, and I saw the amount of work that he had just in one day. There's a cost to sitting in this office, and at below the American poverty level, you can't afford to live. You're doing it for your community. You've addressed all the points that all of you have said as objections, with the exception of the fact that we've increased it, you know, a significant amount from before to now. The increase is just a little over $10,000. We've had people that we would pay to do a study for the city of Mequon where we've evaluated businesses and we've not chosen the lowest bid because we felt that they gave some value to the community. I think increasing this to 21.5, or the dollar amount that's in the packet, because I just happen to have this 26.5 up on the screen here, is not a large increase. It doesn't impact the public. We can find $10,000 of savings on something somewhere in the city and not negatively impact the residents' use of the city or the staff's ability to complete their job or the maintenance of our facilities. I think it's reasonable. I think it gives a sense to somebody that would want to step in this office that they could do this. Maybe somebody that was recently retired who was maybe going to travel a little bit would want to spend a little more time in the city and devote themselves to years of service to give back to their community. It just might make that little bit of difference. Again, I didn't run for this for the alderman's pay. I don't know of any mayor that ran for it for the mayor's pay. In fact, you know, we kind of chuckle that our property taxes are higher than what, you know, what we're paid here. We do it for the community. We do it for the option to serve our community and make a bigger difference for the people that we live with every day. I do not see raising this dollar amount that much as being something negative for the community. I'm sorry, I can't get behind being negative about this. It's a reasonable amount, it's a very low amount, and it's a very fair request. And the fact that the mayor sitting in the seat today is stated that it will never impact him, you know, as long as he's in office, makes it a very fair statement that he really just believes that, you know, the seat does deserve a little bit more to cover some of the expenses that it takes to serve the community.
My last point is, I think you want to tell future mayors that you expect them to work hard, that you expect them to put in time and be involved. And if you're paying them twice what an alderman is paid, you're sending the message that that's really all they need to, you know, that's the expectation. And that probably is the wrong message to send, because it isn't twice. But anyhow, anybody else, or shall we vote? Please call the roll.
Alderman Garrow?
I guess I listened to the arguments and I'll vote yes.
Alderman Parrish?
Aye.
Alderman Schneider?
Aye.
Alderman Nurbin?
Aye.
Alderman Strelchak?
Aye.
Alderman Bushy?
No.
Alderman Meyer?
No.
Alderman Hancher?
Aye.
And that resolution passes. The next item is Resolution 3872. It's a resolution authorizing the collateral assignment of the development agreement with Blue Ribbon Self-Storage III to First Midwest Bank. The Finance Personnel Committee recommends this to the council, and just so the council is aware, they're going to look at adding kind of a policy so that in the future, as long as the collateral assignment meets ordinary and customary requirements, because these become fairly common, that it doesn't have to come to the council like some of the other agreements we have in the development process. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Next item is a resolution awarding an was anybody opposed? I'm sorry. Did I hear something after that? No? Okay. The next resolution is Resolution 3868. It's a resolution awarding an architectural engineer design services contract for a combined restroom, concession, and storage facility at Lemke Park. This was recommended to you by the Park and Open Space Board on July 21. Public Works looked at it this evening. Alderman Meyer?
They did and recommended 3868 for approval and sent on to common council. I move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Alderman Strelchak.
From the first year I was sitting on park board saying we needed flush toilets at Lemke Park, this is finally on its way. I think this is just outstanding. I've been a part of what goes on in this park with youth sports, and I've seen how incredibly useful that space is and how many kids from within the community use that space to participate in active sports and just enjoying the outdoors. I'm full-heartedly supporting this, as well as any additional partnership the city can have with these other groups to, help fund the facility that's going in there. I think this is just simply outstanding.
Please call the roll.
Alderman Parrish.
Aye.
Alderman Schneider.
Aye.
Alderman Nurbin.
Aye.
Alderman Strelchak.
Heck yes.
Alderman Bushy.
Aye.
Alderman Meyer.
Aye.
Alderman Hancher.
Aye.
Alderman Garrell.
Aye.
And that passes. The next resolution is Resolution 3873. This is to approve the purchase of a loader, associated equipment, and to transfer funds from the Public Works operating account to the department's equipment replacement account in order to pay for this. What did Public Works do with this evening?
We
Alderman?
approved that this evening unanimously, and I recommend approval on this.
Second.
Motion to make approval.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Alderman Schneider.
Aye.
Alderman Nurbin.
Aye.
Alderman Strelchak.
Aye.
Alderman Bushy.
Aye.
Alderman Meyer.
Aye.
Alderman Hancher.
Aye.
Alderman Garrell.
Aye.
Alderman Parrish.
Aye.
And the ayes have it. The last resolution on our agenda tonight is Resolution 3874, and this is a resolution approving the receipt and donation from the Mequon Community Foundation for the purchase of police bicycles and associated equipment. The contribution's the estimated amount of $7,069. Public Safety recommended this,
Unanimously recommended to the council.
and is there a motion?
Motion for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes.
Oh,
Over here.
Alderman Boucher.
I just want to note that I was taking my notes on this, and I got short-circuited when I read the fine print, is that it even includes 6 helmets with the MIPS technology in there for safety. I think this is great. Much appreciated.
I would just point out, we're not defunding the police, we're getting them bicycles.
Yes. And helmets.
Yes. All in favor of Resolution 3874, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. We have one last item on our agenda this evening. It's a potential closed session. If this passes and we go into closed session, we will not be coming back into open session, I believe. This is, the closed session would be to discuss the acquisition of a stormwater drainage easement across the property at 9731 North Cortlandt Drive. The Common Council may convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute Section 1985 1E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, and then may reconvene into open session to take such action as deemed appropriate, except we won't. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
Move to go into closed session.
We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Alderman Nurbin.
Aye.
Alderman Strelchak.
Aye.
Alderman Bushy.
Aye.
Alderman Meyer.
Aye.
Alderman Hancher.
Aye.
Alderman Garrell.
Aye.
Alderman Parrish.
Aye.
Alderman Schneider.
Aye.
Mayor Ward.
Aye. We're going to go back to the North Conference Room because we were set up there before. I need to sign a couple things, so I will be right with you. Well, no, I'm gonna sign them in hand.